thinking about was more...
BlogTalkRadio.
Well, hello. This is Ernie Jakob on Open Money on Blog Talk Radio. I'm here with Michael Linton, here being the Comox Valley on the edge of the Pacific in Canada here. And we were going to talk about, the idea was a smorgasbord of solutions, being that there are any number of issues that people need to deal with in their communities and around the world, and no money to do it with, and we're talking about open money. So, Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Good morning, Ernie. Good morning, world. Am I coming through loud and clear?
Yes, you are. Hopefully they can hear us as well. Although we have had indication that the sound quality isn't the best. So we might want to do something about that sometime.
Well, I think the people who were asking us for an improved stream of the Blog Talk Radio were looking for almost broadcast quality. So I don't think that's something we can achieve through Blog Talk Radio necessarily. I'm quite satisfied with what Blog Talk offers. So. Oh,
well, I am too, for sure.
The quality
I just
rules.
thought perhaps it may have something to do with our technical stuff, our microphones, for instance. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're here. We're live. It's 11 o'clock on the West Coast. And we're in January. We haven't done much since December, since a long time ago.
Christmas, the new year, the change of seasons, and a time to regroup and think forward, to look at what does the year bring for open money, and what does open money bring for the year. What do you think?
Well,
what's up?
What do I think?
What do you think?
I think we're in deep doo-doo. That's what I think. And I think that this is about the only thing that's, that and the hydrogen solution perhaps are the only positive things that I see. This open money and hydrogen are about the only two positive things that I can see out there. But,
Not in the U.S. presidential elections? Hardly.
Oh, really? Are they doing that again?
It is that time of the 4-year cycle. We're back into the fourth year, the year where the United States becomes so abstracted and distorted and confused about itself that it's not even what it is in the other 3 years. Oh well. Yeah, so it's grim. It is grim,
and it's a wash in money. There's an incredible amount of money being spent on saying the same shit over and over and over and over again by all the same fucking players. Am I allowed to say that on Blog Talk Radio?
Well, players? I don't know. I think not, probably. Let's see if we're pulled from the air in 10 seconds because of the airwaves. It's showtime. I think the issue now is there's no call to defer. There's no point in being slow or guarding the situation carefully so that we don't come out prematurely with something. I think the premature time is over. Maturity is a secondary consideration. Immediacy is the core point now.
Well, that's my point about being in deep doo-doo. Everybody. It seems to me that anybody with even half a brain knows that we're headed for the precipice, like at full speed, and it's like whoever's driving the locomotive. Well, they're driving the locomotive.
Who's driving the locomotive? They're not driving the locomotive.
I don't know.
They're hanging on one or two of the levers.
It's out of control. It's a machine that has been built, and it's just out of control, going over the precipice, and the world is in that caboose, going with it. That's the vision. That's what I see happening. And yeah, it's like we have to do something immediate and serious and systemic. I think that's the other issue too. Is just changing light bulbs and recycling ain't gonna cut it.
Not at all. Not a chance. No, it's time for the big time. It's very clear from everything you read in the mainstream media and the politics that institutional response to the crisis is inadequate. People are still talking about point source emission control. That's the Canadian government particularly. Seems to think that there must be a way we can profit from the Alberta tar sands and still achieve our status as global citizens in some way. And it's that sort of inadequate thinking that really we have to step right away from. You could go back 100 years. There was plenty of concern about the inadequacy of political situations, social situations, legal situations, religious situations, not much about environmental. So it did come down to largely a matter of political opinion, matter of financial power, strategic opportunity. We win, you lose. There was still that fight game going on. But we're now looking at an entire planet, and we're looking at the consequences of increasing the carbon dioxide overload in the atmosphere. And they are dire, and we are seeing them time and time again. California has been hit 3 or 4 times in the last few months with drought and rain, the fires and all the other the recent consequences of that major front that went in and started flooding.
It's happening everywhere, mm-hmm. and there's nowhere to go, right? I mean, it's not like, well, let's hop on the next rocket to the next planet. There's nowhere to go, and the whole thing is going down the tubes. And as you say, the institutional response is woefully inadequate. I mean, it's business as usual is what it is, and business as usual is what's got us into this mess. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or should I say money as usual?
Well, it's culture as usual, and that has run by a conventional monetary model for the last 2,000-3,000 years. It's always been the fear and greed model of money. I would not part with my goats until you gave me a bag of gold or a similar commodity in exchange. We wanted value for value in every transaction because we didn't trust anything in the middle. And so the primary convenience of money was to be the valuable thing that wasn't the goats or the grain or the work, the building. It was just the set of tickets, but they were strong tickets in the sense that they were value in themselves. We've been stuck with that model for forever, despite the fact that it has actually no relevance to the way the world actually uses the technology of money. And we now need to separate the confusions between what we have always thought money needed to be and what we can now conceive of as its possibility and range. We've got to get the money.
And if anybody wants to know any more about that stuff, we've laid down a whole bunch of tracks as podcasts on Blog Talk Radio, which I guess we should do a little bit of an intro just in case somebody is listening and just in case somebody wants to join the conversation. We're Open Money, Michael Linton and Ernie Jacob, and we are memepro on Blog Talk Radio on Open Money. And there is a guest call-in number, which is 646-716-9424. There's also a chat open if you want to drop us a note and tell us you're listening and how the sound is and whether you have any comments or questions or ideas or you want to join in. So there are a number of ways people can participate. Mm-hmm. So, and as I said, we have laid down a number of podcasts where we talk about open money in all its lovely ramifications.
However, for today, we must assume that it's just you and I are talking to each other about the overall strategies for the year 2008.
Well, and as we normally do.
Yes, as we always will until it's done, I suppose.
Yeah. Although there does appear to be, there are more and more people picking up on these ideas and starting to do something with them.
Well, this is
true. And I guess that's what 2008 is about, right?
Mm-hmm. I surely hope so. Now, one of the things about that is so that I'm just looking back on the notes you've collected over the last few months on some of these issues, and you cite particularly, I'm thinking of the one about the Canadian government's community economics analysis on First Nations, and the issue about financing Aboriginal self-government. And this is the quote. They're saying that the extent that population in a community has any spending power, they often have little choice other than to buy outside goods from stores in surrounding communities. Some money comes into a community from outside and almost immediately leaks away to the outside world with no healthy internal circular turnover to speak of. Now, that, of course, is something we've been talking about for years. It seems that the Canadian government, in its strategically positioned First Nation report in January 1997, 11 years ago,
11 months
the same conclusion.
11 months
1997, it says here.
Oh, is that 97? I'm sorry. Geez, I read that as 2007.
Yes, you could be mistaken, couldn't you? But
I could be.
if you cut and paste that, did you just pull that from their site?
Oh, there it is. I see it. Yes, of course. It's 1997. Yeah.
Doesn't that give you a feeling of hope?
Well, yes, and I mean, I think that's what these government agencies do. Is they write these reports,
which are then buried underneath a whole bunch of other things and never show the light of day again. Yeah.
Yes, and without any real solutions to them, and that's the point of this. I mean, and not just Aboriginal communities. I mean, it works the same here. Some money comes into a community from outside and almost immediately leaks away to the outside world with no healthy internal circular turnover to speak of. Now, that sentence applies to just about every community in the world.
With the possible exception of the Bahamas, a few tax havens, that sort of thing. But even there, yes, there's in, spin around, and spin out again. They're just transfer stations. They're
that's right. That's right. And certainly for the local population, the worker drones in those places that are running those machines that are sucking money through from all over the world, right? I mean, that's just the money's flowing through. It doesn't stick around. It doesn't circulate much. And that's what they're talking about in terms of Aboriginal community economics. That's how it works. And yes, and as you say, we have been saying that for a very long time.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a researcher at the London School of Economics a few years ago, where I was pointing out this spin dryer effect, that the centrifuge, that every dollar spent in the community is sort of 70 cents in the dollar at least, on average, is drawn out to the external suppliers. That's the miracle of modern centralized production, engineering, shipping, transportation. It's cheaper to get it from the other side of the world, even if you're paying freight. The cost of cheap labor, cheap manufacturing practices justifies getting it all from there. So he was amazed at the concept that every community in the world was like that. that you could take everybody, you could form a virtual community by saying, let's think of everybody in our local region whose surname begins in the letter K. Then you postulate them as a group of economic participants. You don't say that they have any prior connection to each other. They don't. They're just the Ks of our community. But you could analyze, with their permission and participation, of course, the amount of money that came to them and where they spent it, and you would find that for the letter K, the community of K, so many $1 million was coming into your local region, and so many million was going out, and it would be about 70% gone immediately. And because the K people don't have a very strong relationship with each other, apart from the first letter, the interchange between them wouldn't be particularly high. There would be no reason for it. But it would still be reflective of the sort of interchanges that happen in the full alphabet soup in your community, which is not much. Now, it doesn't matter where you draw the boundary, whether it's around your street, around the people with the initial K, or women, or seniors, or the region of the bioregion of the world you live in. The same thing applies. We have become sucked into a cash crop dependency model where the cash comes in, spins around a little, spins out again, and so we're between the supply and the demand of the money. And the demand is perpetual. Got to spend it to get things. The supply is variable, so we're in a fear, uncertainty, and doubt condition simply by the structure of the money. And it's inevitable. Can't be done any different with that stuff. And this cycle of I'm just monologuing. Well, this cycle of monologue just began with the Aboriginal issue and the fact that a Canadian government report had noticed this. But it hasn't noticed it about the town of Lethbridge, or the province of Manitoba, or the city of Greater Toronto. It hasn't noticed that that's the same damned situation.
Well, not only that, it also hasn't noticed what it's about. It doesn't know that there's a very simple solution to that problem, right? To the money problem, and that is you have your own local recirculating mutual credit currencies, not just one, right?
No, multiple.
I.e., that's the idea of open money. Okay, you have multiple currencies in your communities, in our communities. So
yeah,
they haven't touched on the money itself. It's like invisible.
That's right.
Talk about it as if they know what it is.
If they had an answer to the Aboriginal issue that they're raising, it would be to find a way to try and keep that money, the federal money, the normal stuff, somehow entrapped or enclosed or recycled inside that native community. Now, it just isn't possible. You can make marginal differences. You can shift from a sort of a 70% drainage to a 65% drainage. Well, that's better than 70%, but it's so small in terms of the real things. It just has the community still running in the same little hamster cage. It's still got to struggle in the same way. It's just we've changed the scale and the effectiveness of the struggle. Well, our proposition is leave that struggle on its own, and in the meantime introduce collaboration in the community with a collaborative money, with the monies that make it work. And I said a collaborative money, but many is really the point. It's a common error in this issue of community currency introduction that people start with, what's the best one? How should we do this right? And they struggle to try and get a great design, which is not like trying to create the car that's going to be the most satisfying car in North America and Europe for the next 6 years. There isn't a design that will do this. There are too many varieties. There's too much flexibility needed. So even if it were theoretically possible, the likelihood of people putting it together is nil, or close to it. Now, since it's not theoretically possible to have a single alternative currency, and the word alternative is used a lot by people who think this way, they get stuck.
I just have to interject here. I think it's simply a natural approach to trying something new. It's like, I'm going to try a new pair of shoes. I'm not going to try a whole bunch of new pair of shoes, or I'm going to. It's like,
one thing at a time.
We can set up a mutual credit currency in this town. Okay, let's do it. Let's set one up.
Now that's fine. I'm not arguing that you shouldn't start with some sort of well-organized, strategic, specific initiative. In fact, we absolutely advocate that you do. What we advocate, however, is that you should stop agonizing over the best and the rightest and the most perfect, and rather use the primary initiative, which we see as a community way model, something based on local business, donations to local causes, and conversion by local population to create circulation. That's the community way model. And we argue that that is applicable to many different platforms, but it need not be singular. That if you put it up essentially if you do it in an open money platform, of course you're providing room for time banks, you're providing room for LED systems, you're providing room for neighborhood swap nets, free cycle amplifiers, all sorts of things become feasible with an open money platform. And if you stop trying to get it right and just get on with doing it, then the multiplicities and the varieties and the creativity of people in community will produce values and performances that are way more interesting, exciting, and self-generated than any pious imperialism, any boy do we have the answer for you stuff. So let's stop messing around with getting it right. Let's get on with doing it.
Well, doing it has to do with solving problems. I mean, that's what we were talking about when we were thinking about what we were going to talk about on this show, was looking at what we called a smorgasbord of solutions. I mean, what's the problem that needs to be solved here? Well, one of the problems, for instance, it doesn't matter where a community starts with a community currency, as long as the platform is open, and there are many, many community currencies that can be opened as well. But starting with, most people focus in on, well, I want to do something about homelessness in my community. Mm-hmm. And that's a big issue. That's a big issue right now in the dead of winter. There are people out in the Comox Valley who are sleeping outside in tents, right? In inadequate sleeping bags, getting wet. I think
under bushes in plastic bags.
Yeah,
it's bad. It's terrible. It's obscene.
And yet this is a rich community.
Rich beyond belief. I'm looking out of my window here. My window in my 8-room house. I guess you'd call it that much. My wife and I sleep in one. We eat in another. We have this and that. We have an immense amount of space here, and we're actually probably not much above or below the average of everybody in this neighborhood, and there are hundreds of houses, hundreds of livable spaces. There are hundreds of empty offices. There are so many places that people could be sheltered and kept warm and supported. But they don't get the opportunity because it comes down to either individual generosity, which is good, but only solves the problem for one or two at a time. And we need to have a systemic change where it is recognized that our society, well, as they say, your society's quality is measured by how it treats its least favored parties, the aged, elderly, the disabled, the people who have to struggle in life. Well, the Canadian economy has progressively shifted from being a well-based, liberal, mid-range economy, basically driven by the Medicare model, the Tommy Douglas work of the... When did he do that, in the 50s or was it the 40s? I don't know. I should remember my history more accurately. But anyway, Canada used to look after people. Canada has suffered the same problem that so many rational economies have in the last 40 years. The privatization team have come in and said, we can do it for you cheaper. And it would be...
No, they don't necessarily say cheaper. They say more efficiently.
Yeah, they've given up
better value for the dollar spent, because everybody knows that government bureaucracies are inefficient as hell, but private, but corporations, wow, now they're something to be reckoned with.
Well, and it resolves the responsibility. If at first you can't succeed, give it to somebody else. That's the government's strategy. If they are on the hook for all sorts of services, the quality of the provision is something that they're constantly being challenged at, the ballot box and in audit committees, and how well you're spending this money. So it's become very politically convenient for the right wing in particular, but God knows the left wing plays it too, to actually contract out community services to the highest bidder. I mean, the classic on this, of course, is the U.S. Prison Service, which is...
Don't forget the Canadian Prison Service. I mean, it's a prison service. I mean, whatever. The builders and maintainers of prisons.
Yes, but you've got to remember that in Canada it's still a government monopoly, whereas in the States it's contracted out and it's highest bidder. And running the prison service is, all too often a private corporate process. And it's one of the highest growth economic sectors, because after all, you can always ensure that there'll be a return customer. If you just treat the prisoners like shit, they'll be back. So... it's
certainly, but the point, what I see happening, of course, is this. I mean, and what you were saying, right, is Canada is privatizing and sloughing off. I mean, Canada, all levels of government in Canada are sloughing off their services, and corporations are lining up to pick them up and make a profit, make money on the deal. That's what corporations are for.
And the susceptibility of our society to these, let's save some money and do it more efficiently and cut out the inefficient bureaucracy. And so this is so prevalent. It's all over the planet. And it's all part of the nucleation, the segregation of society into little economic units. We are not seen as communities. We are not seen as families, as a society that has a life of its own.
We are consumers. We are consumers.
That's right. Individual
Actually,
consumers.
we're two things. We're workers, we're drones, we're wage slaves, and consumers.
And where we are owners, the major part of ownership, neglecting houses for the moment, that's another whole discussion, but the major part of ownership is shareholding, either direct or through intermediate funds, in the corporate world, which is the primary irresponsibility. Well, I need my pension to work, and that's got to yield so much on the money that's been dropped in it over the years, so I rely on the pension fund manager to get the best bang for my bucks. I pay no attention. It's not my department. I just wait for the check to come in. Well, where's that check coming from?
Well,
and you find out it's coming from
the Canada pension. With the Canadian pension, that's what I've got coming in now. Yeah, I've got blood money because Canada Pension Plan invests in the war industry.
Of course, everything invests in the war industry. We are so invested in war, and it's war on each other. God knows what could have been done with the amount of money that the U.S. has pumped into its Iraq misadventures.
Well, and don't forget Canada in Afghanistan. I mean, there's a ton of money. Well, I mean, the thing is that there is a huge war industry in Canada. People think there's this mythology that Canada is a peaceful and peacemaking nation. That's bullshit.
Long
Canada
gone.
is one of the members of the Imperium, and
Open for the
war
warfare
industry
business.
makes a good buck, and the only time they make money is when there are wars.
And then that money percolates through the economy and allows the governments to say, oh, look, we're doing you good. You know, growth has been so much this year. What are you complaining about? So we struggle on to the next place.
Open money as a solution to war.
As a solution to war. Well, as a redirection of human effort, there's been so many times in history when people have said, oh, if women ran the economy in the world and we lived as though we were a big family and so on, it would be different. And certainly it would, because the amount of money, the amount of human effort that goes into this fervent struggle to win what? Military success, economic success, it's far too much. It's too high a proportion of our society's creativity, and it's creating in the wrong direction. It's not just that the vehicle is badly designed and powered, it's also going in the wrong place. Now, that has to be changed, and the only way to change it is not by, I think, I'm sure many of us would agree, not by going in and trying to persuade the people who are playing that game to change it.
No,
the presidential elections in the States, for instance, are going to still be driven by money. That's life.
It doesn't matter what, the democracy game that's being played, the fantasy game that's being played right now, is also the same fantasy game that is played regularly in this country. And we're not going to change the game, the direction, by changing the party in Parliament.
Not a piece. But how much would be necessary to fundamentally redirect the effectiveness of the entire economy? I'm thinking about a little scene I saw in a Woody Allen film. I wish I could remember it, but it showed a crowd of people struggling through Grand Central Station, I think. Don't quote me to be right or wrong on that, but an overhead shot of maybe 100 people scrambling through the concourse in different directions, and it's all turmoil and interruption of each other. And then the music in the background shifts from being something, God knows what, to being a Viennese waltz. And all of a sudden, people are dancing. They are in partners, and they're swirling and whirling and beautifully dancing in this same space, because the music and, of course, the choreography that got them in the place where they could connect with their partner and start the dance. Nice piece of film work. Then the music stops, changes back to the turmoil, and bang, they're fighting and struggling. We have seen societies on many occasions transit from one mode to another. Usually the fastest transits come from war or disaster, earthquake, famine, floods, all sorts of things will draw a community together. Major fire, a health catastrophe, a major epidemic or something. One of the things that happens is that the community must, to grow from that in any positive way, come together and be more positively interactive. We must work together. And our monetary models are just working apart. They cause us to be in a fight. Now, if we got 2%...
It's not so much they cause us to be in a fight. While you were speaking, I was thinking of Naomi Klein's shock doctrine and the disaster capitalism that ensues. And when you were talking about the tsunami and earthquakes, I was thinking of New Orleans and Sri Lanka and how she describes the way the corporate predators feast on the disaster. They move in and prevent the community from coalescing and working together. In fact, they're kept away from their communities. And the whole community is redesigned in their image, which is to make money.
Yeah. Well, that's taking the advantage of a disturbance to implement a political force majeure transition, an economic political initiative. Yeah, these guys move in when things get rough, and that's a particularly good reason why it's important that we have community development in those crises rather than simple global corporatization, the liberalization, as they call it, of the market.
Well, even more so, perhaps, is for the community to be prepared. In other words, to have its own vibrant economy with community currencies before a disaster hits, because then they're in much better shape to stave off the wolves at the door, and to just to get their shit together, right? I mean, just to live.
Yeah, but what sort of level of crisis are we talking about?
And rebuild.
I mean, should we be saying we should rebuild now because there will be a crisis coming at some stage? This is true. No community is ever without crises in the future. Things will happen. Climatic.
Be prepared. Be prepared is the motto.
Yeah. Well, yet it would be a mistake to suggest that we are building for a future crisis, because the truth of the matter is we are already subject to crisis. There are several levels of crisis running in our worlds. Obviously the climatic, the energy use, the abuse of topsoil, the destruction of amenity is going on perpetually. This engine is crunching. The juggernaut is rolling. So good to cite that let's get ready because we want to get ready. But it's also, hey, it would have been great if we'd been ready 20 years ago. It would be great if we were acting now as though we are trying to be ready for the circumstances that we're already suffering from. Just a minor point. Sorry, Arnie.
Well, no. I think that's apropos. I think we are in crisis. If any, and that's what we started talking about is we're in deep shit. The planetary survival is at stake. There's no time to lose, and we've got to get on with these solutions, these ideas. We need to get on with doing these things, and the other the piece of that I was moving towards is that it's not difficult. The transition, the initiation, the beginning of implementing these ideas is not difficult. It's dead easy.
Yes, indeed. In fact, it's as simple as going to the site, taking an account, and saying, I deal in community, I play in community, I trade in community, I work in my community, I contribute to my community, I receive from my community, I'm part of the open money community. I am a user. There you go.
I am a user. Well, yes, and we're talking about a process as easy as starting an e-group on Yahoo or Google. Getting an account in a community currency or several community currencies is starting them.
Well, just to go through a simple model, which will soon be available with its own little Google map mashup, so that you can just go ping and see how many people have joined to the open money process in your nation, in your region, in your locality, perhaps even in your neighborhood. You'll be able to see how many people have opened accounts in open money systems in your part of the world. You'll be able to open one yourself simply by confirming your identity through a website, just like opening a normal account, some degree of identification, some degree of I am who I am, this is it. And then with the password to that domain, that region's namespace. You can say, I want to be called Joe Blow in this space, or Fred in this space, or Associated Engineering. They probably call that ASE or something. But some short name, almost like an email, but preferably a damn sight shorter. You take out your name, and then you're in. You have an address. Now, that wasn't too difficult. The next, and
this is all described at openmoney.info.
Yeah. If you're listening to this today, on January the 8th today, I suppose? Are we the 9th?
Yep. Yeah.
The 8th.
The 8th, yeah.
Yep. If you're listening to this on January the 8th, what you'll see is the bare bones in the architecture. In a few days, preferably, let's bet that it'll be by the 15th, you'll be able to go to the site and log on and follow exactly these instructions. And you will have a preliminary account in the open money space. Now, stronger accounts will come from community development in your own part of the world. That's another discussion. But the technology
and the discussion is about Community Way as a starter for community currency development in any community, and that's also that's up on openmoney.org/CW. That's openmoney.org/CW. And if anybody wants to talk to us, you can call in on this. We're live right now. You can call in on the guest call-in number at 646-716-9424. You can Skype us. You can email us. And our email addresses are Michael is MWL@openmoney.org. I'm Ernie at openmoney.org. And another place that you can look to see what's what is at lets.net, which is all about, it's everything that's been done to date, pretty much links to, and starting from the origin of this work with Let's systems. And we've got about 17 minutes left on this program.
And so far we're still just meandering around the generalities of what this year has to address if it's to be one we can look back on and say, well, at least we got something going, we got started, we took a step out. Show business, really. It's showtime. We've got to show what we have, which is thin but adequate. It's a good start. We've got the software. We've got the organizational architectures. We have social agreement structures that can serve this very effectively, and it's time to bring them out into the open and let everybody do what they do with them. So,
yeah, by the way, I guess
we
should make note that this, what we're talking about here is open source freeware, which makes it possible for anybody anywhere to set up community currencies on their own without even any reference to us, if they want to. It's all free and open.
Yeah. So openmoney.info would be the place to go to look for any of that. And progressively you'll find a deeper tag cloud in that area that will take you to different aspects of this project.
Which is quite, in some ways it's very large and very complex, but at the root of it, it's a very simple idea.
It's very practical. It's very practical. That's the key point about this is it's not about what if, and you dream about what might happen if you got 40,000 people to agree to it, or you ran for government and changed people's minds, or you started a new technical issue in land management or something. Those are long, expensive, demanding processes and very fragile, and you don't know whether your efforts are going to make any difference to the whole thing because it's such a big, complex, messy, unpredictable package. Well, this is also a big, messy, unpredictable package. Absolutely. But your participation in it is going to do both good for you and for the communities within which you circulate your transactions. So this isn't a, I wonder if it's worth it. Oh, probably not. This isn't the ground of apathy. This is an opportunity for positive action that will yield positive results for you and for those in your
an invitation. And an invitation to join in and play and work with us, because we're looking, and there are, I guess the other point here is that there are bite-sized pieces of this project that people can take on.
Plenty of small pieces and plenty of opportunity for conversation. Now, one of the deficiencies of what we're doing right now, Ernie, is that you and I are preaching to a virtual choir and talking to each other about essentially hypotheticals, and when people call in and start going with us and we have these conversations about their actual practical considerations, their issues, when they say, yeah, but how did you do this? And what software should I use for that? And when we can answer these questions for you in your context, in conversation, on this radio channel, Blog Talk Radio, Open Money.
And off this radio channel. I mean, there are many channels, and we are interested in many conversations with anybody.
So let's converse. So rather than us standing here sort of preaching hypotheticals, we can be in conversation in many levels, many ways, with different groups who want to do this work. But it's about open money. It's about getting on with it. It's about take an aim, take a position, take a stance. Let's get on with it. Worldwide and right where you live. And you are invited.
This thing scales.
Mm-hmm. Now, in a couple of weeks, we're going to do a scaling package on the 21st, Monday the 21st of January. We will be broadcasting live in this form from a project in Seattle where we're actually designing the meme packages. We're exploring the components of our arsenal of Move the Money. How do we get people interested in this? What are the pieces? What are the stages that people have to go through to become active effectively,
productive.
Active intelligently?
Yes, that's productive.
Yeah. Now, curiously, you don't have to have a hell of a degree of intelligence to use this money well. I mean, we're not talking about an IQ test. We're not talking about secret inside knowledge. Fundamentally, if you behave yourself with a modicum of well-intention, like don't spend the money crazy and don't cheat, then you'll do fine with this. That's the level of intelligence required. But it helps to understand a bit more of how the thing is working, to feel confident in its range and to know the limits. The most important, to use this money intelligently, that you know its limits. You don't behave like a mad idiot. Don't take any money, any virtual money, that you don't think you can spend. So keep trying to spend it.
The limits are unknowable, because once open money is out there, there's any number of weird and wonderful things that people are going to do with it.
Yeah, and I'm afraid you've got to start from the premise that most of the weird stuff will not be wonderful. It will be totally nonsense. I mean,
I was thinking of wonderful too.
Well, there's going to be, but let's be clear about this. Everybody who gets into open money does it on their own responsibility, accountability, intelligibility, credibility. There are no free lunches in this thing. You don't get anything for nothing in itself. What you get is the opportunity to be in monetary networks where your word is your money, where the stuff you spend comes around and goes around. If it comes around and goes around right. If through any individual There's multi-level, there's pyramid schemes, there's games that are about exploitation. Not to say that all multi-level is exploitation. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying most of it is. And most ideas that people will start flashing across the open money space will be get-rich-quick schemes of some sort. If you think spam is bad on email as a noise factor, you can expect there to be a high potential for Nigerian scams and, hey friend, all you have to do is invest in this marvelous little model of whatever and your money will grow, grow, grow. No. In open money, none of that bullshit. In open money, what you sow, you reap. What comes, goes. You are a reflection. You will find the world reflects how you behave. So,
well, the most active circuits will be small and intimate.
Yeah, there'll be amongst people where you've got some sense of confirmation that everything's going fine. You got to think of it like a large flock of birds or a school of fish, or a herd of animals moving across territory. If you're in the middle of it, you know you're fine. You don't have to worry about everything. You don't worry about much except your interactions with the world. Am I coming? Am I going? Is it good? Is it bad? Should I be here? Should I be there? That's about you. You don't have to mind everybody else's business. You mind your own business. You're in the middle of the herd. Maybe you're towards one side. Maybe you're ahead on the front edge. Maybe you're hanging back a bit. There's a herd. You mind your own business. Behave effectively. Give value, get value. You'll be fine. They'll be fine. The money will be fine. Now, you don't understand that first up, so that's why there are ways for you to have experience of why that works so easily and lightly, why there isn't a need for governance, why there aren't fetishes about credit limits and control and central committees of this, that, and the other. You would think all those are necessary, but they're not in open money. Not for every form. There are some forms that will require very complex and supportive, investment packages in open money, international trading systems in open money. Yeah, you're going to have some strong understandings and clear rules, and there may be governance issues that will require committees and whatever. But for the most part, the thing about open money is you buy and spend as you choose in the currencies as you like, and there's no need for anybody to tell you anything else about it in terms of controls or limits or quotas or ratios or interest payments or interest charges. All sorts of things just don't exist. Anyway.
We've got 7 minutes remaining, and we should probably focus in on 2008, which is what we started with in terms of solutions.
I think that's part of the agenda on the 21st. We'll include some conversation about that.
So in terms of trying to make all of this intelligible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been one of our difficulties. First of all, an audience. And secondly is making it intelligible or something.
Yeah.
Transparent, visible, grokkable.
It's to go through the looking glass. It's there's nothing complex about this in its essence and in its immediate practicalities. There are many complexities in in what will happen from it. But the first step is basically to look again at what is right in front of you and see it very slightly differently. You look out into the world and you see that people are making what they can with what's available to them, where they are, and it's about getting some money, spending some money, hanging on, hanging in. That's the world. At the moment you do it with conventional money and it behaves this way. We're just saying, those of you who can step through the looking glass, through the film of fuzz and confusion, and just see things a little bit more clearly and in full color, we'll see that we can use also monies that go round and round and round in our communities. Dead easy, right now. Let's go. Well, those of you who can come through that looking glass are entering a different world. And that is Open Money 2008. It's
open mind, open mind, open money.
Yeah. Well, perhaps it's not a different world. It's really the same world. It's just rather more same than you ever saw it before. Welcome to the same world. Something like that. Because the problem that we live with is our distance from the world we live in, our distance in physical, experiential terms. But also that the abstractions that we use to manage ourselves, and the biggest abstraction of our management is money. Used to be religion, used to be physical structure, tribal patterns, aristocracies. But now it's money. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Money rules the world. Money runs the world. We do what money tells us. We do what the money lets us. And
everybody needs it. Everybody needs it. In the con money game, it's the most for the least. It's flow through. It sucks and it corrupts. That's normal money. What we're talking about is a different kind of a money that circulates. It just moves around, enabling business and trade, convivial relationships, community currencies, open money, let systems, and that's what we are. Michael and I, Michael Linton, Ernie Jacob, memepro, open money, community currencies, let systems. And these are mutual credit community currencies.
You don't have to change who you are. Just got to change the money that you're using. Change up into open money. Not drop it. Don't get rid of conventional money. We're not saying let go of anything. We're just saying add some more.
So we now have 3 minutes remaining. When are we going to do another show?
Ooh, I don't know.
Later
this week.
Okay.
Let's go
we should do another show, and we'll talk about it. We'll figure out when we're going to do another show. We should be doing them fairly regularly, and just building up the podcasts.
Well, I think more to the point, this should become a regular presence. It should become anybody who wants to talk here and now, this time slot, probably this time slot. So we invite conversations because otherwise we drone on and get pompous or lost or bored. And reality is
but
we're
get
here
in touch. Get in touch with us.
To talk.
Drop us an email.
Okay. Thanks, Ernie. That was good conversation. A lot of good thoughts in there. I think we can move on quite nicely from this, probably on Friday. But don't be surprised if it's another time.
Friday's good for me. Around this time, 11 o'clock. Tentatively, we'll do it again on Friday.
Well, checking out. Bye now.
Okay, Bye, Michael. And that's it for me, too. Let me find my Skype here, and that's how we do these things. We do Skype, and I'm going to log off now. Bye for now. See you maybe Monday.